Welcome to Read This Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria James, and I am so excited to have with us today Dr. Pazanta Byars. She is a poet, author, and a publisher of several books promoting the Gullah culture. Welcome, Dr. Byars. Welcome, Pazanta. How are you? It's so great to have you,
Thank you
on Read This. Before we jump into your poetry and the book and your culture, your rich heritage, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and, just let us get to know you.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here on your show. Yes, my name is Pazanta Byars, and I'm originally from Beauford, South Carolina. Moved to Atlanta, Georgia when I was 14. When I graduated from high school in Atlanta, I went on to HBCU and Savannah State University. And I went on to work as the president and CEO for the original Gullah Festival in South Carolina, which is the festival that my grandmother and my aunts founded. Around that time, I went to spend time with my Yamesse tribal family in South Carolina. I actually lived on the reservation for a couple of years. And because around this time, my kids are, my children were grown. So I was able to spread my wings just a little bit more. After spending time on the reservation, I went back to Atlanta. I did retire in 2020 and moved from Atlanta to North Carolina. Completed my work with my doctorate degree in organizational leadership. And then my purpose in life changed. Began to write. I said, now at this time of my life that I was retired, I was going to start focusing on doing the things that was my passion in terms of creatively. So I began to gather all of my poems that I had written over all the years, put them all together. And it was really challenging because all of my poetry, this was ever since I was 12 years old. So a lot of poetry was not, in computers and so on and so forth. So I began to gather my poems and I said, I am going to publish this book. I'm going to finally do it. So I learned how to self-publish it, did get that published in 2021. And then I said, well, it's like once I got that out of me, then there was another book that wanted to come out, and it was The Thin Veil. And The Thin Veil was about my encounters with the unseen and the Gullah Island. The third book I birthed around this time it's called Reaping the Sheaves. And Reaping the Sheaves is a book about manifesting the things that you want in life, and through various techniques that my mentors gave me throughout my lifetime. So this is just a brief, quick history, but so I have 3 books that I've written. And then a friend of mine here said, well, why don't she wanted me to help her publish her book. And I said, well, okay, sure, I'll help you. So I was able to help her get her book published. And then I began to work with other people who wanted theirs published. And so then that was the birth of my publishing company, Mikaba Publishing Company. And then the clients started coming. And a lot of my clients are people who wanted to do this all their lives. The book I'm working on now is it's a wonderful, wonderful book by a young lady. She's a celebrity makeup artist, but she calls it Covered. And she compares her life to the application of makeup. Establishing a firm foundation and, what concealers do. I mean, it's very, very, I'm totally embracing it. And it's wonderful. I love working with people and I love telling their stories, especially when stories of overcoming, difficulties. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I listened to several of your poems that I love listening to poems in the author or the poet's voice because even when you read it for yourself, you might take a different rhythm or a different cadence,
Yeah.
but it's always wonderful to hear it the way the poet wanted it to be spoken. So I enjoyed listening to your poetry.
Thank you.
But before we get into your poetry, I would really like for people to get an understanding of the rich Gullah traditions and heritage, because that is not understood. I think when we originally had our first conversation, I mentioned to you for many years the only reference that I knew of Gullah or Gullah Geechee was from a soldier story, right? That was the only time I had ever heard it. Recently, I've heard a little bit more, especially about the rich basket weaving and how so many of the traditions that came over from West Africa are still so strong and so prevalent in the community. And I would just love for you to share what the festival is about and what is so rich about the culture.
Okay. Well, the Gullah culture, first of all, my grandmother, Rosalie Pazant, was an English instructor in Beauford, South Carolina. And so when she and my aunts got together and said they wanted to educate the community about the Gullah culture, it was because my grandmother said that many students that came into her class spoke Gullah and they were ashamed of it. And so what she wanted to do is that she wanted to highlight the rich culture of of Gullah, the language, the food, the art. The story of the Gullahs they are the Africans that were brought over to the islands in South Carolina from West Africa, Senegal, the Senegalese. And so what happened is that because the islands were so hot when they brought the slaves over there, that the slave master said, well, hey, listen, what we'll do, we'll just come over and make sure that the crops are ready for harvesting. But it's too hot for us. So we'll just come check and we'll leave, which is what was beneficial for the Gullah culture because it wasn't diluted. And so the more Africans that came over, the more it strengthened the culture, because now they're bringing even more, and they're saturating the culture with the languages and the arts and, crafts and so forth, the food that was coming over from West Africa. The formation of the Gullah language is that when the slave masters went over to Africa and they saw how the Africans had such advanced civilizations over there, they had to choose Africans to lead to be able to communicate with the other Africans. So they developed a language mixed with English so that it could be like a standard, like a general, a universal language. Exactly. So this is why there are people in the Caribbean that they'll say, oh, that sounds a lot like, what how we speak in the Caribbean and so forth, because it was a general language. So Gullah is definitely a language. I've heard some people say that it's broken English. No, it's not broken English. It is a language. And then, of course, like I said, the food, the arts, the crafts, the folk tales, the healings, the herb, all of that. It's very, very thick and it's not diluted in the Gullah Islands.
And I asked one other question in regards to that, because in my research, I see like the Gullah is maybe North and South Carolina, and then Geechee is Georgia and Florida. Is that how but they're basically the same, or are they really different?
The Gullah is basically the language.
Okay.
Geechee basically says, where you're from, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia,
Okay.
that North Carolina, that the coastal what's called the Gullah Corridor. So
Okay.
if you say
Okay.
you're Geechee, then that's you're identifying your geographical
Graphical location.
location.
Excellent. Excellent.
But
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that enlightening understanding, because I wanted to have that be the foundation before we start talking about your book, because you have like a poem called The Gullah Lover, I think it is.
Gucci lover,
And then the Gathered Petals. And I felt like they needed to not be what you understood first, but you understood a little bit about the culture of where this beauty is coming from, you know?
Right. Yes.
So now that we understand the richness of the culture in which your poetry flows, please tell me what inspired some. You said you've been doing poetry since you were 12. So there's a lot. I'm sure the inspirations are different over the years, but just share with me some of what your inspirations have been for your poetry.
It's been so much. I love nature. I used to go sit out in nature, and we used to we lived in Atlanta. We used to live near the stream, water stream. And so many times I'd go and I'd sit down by this water stream, and I was like, wow, how can I capture this, without taking a picture? And then it just occurred to me to write it, and so I did. And I actually have that poem in my book, my very first poem, that I can be proud of. I mean, what I feel was meaningful. When I was sitting by the stream, that was my very first inspiration in terms of, trying to capture it in words. And then when I was a young teenager, I saw a video of Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis, and they were reciting poetry. And I said, oh, so that's what you do with that, because it was so beautiful, and there was such an inspiration. So I said, okay, that's how I do that. So with a Geechee Lover, I was watching A Soldier's Story. He would talk so bad about Geechees, And another thing too, I think is important to know, you can be a Geechee but not speak Gullah and not know any Gullah. There are many people who are from that area, but they don't, you know what I mean? But they don't speak Gullah, being Geechee and being, the geographical location. When I heard this in the soldier story, when I heard him talking to the Geechee soldier, I said, no, I've got to write something that counteracts what he is saying. So I can recite it. You're my pretty Geechee man, wooing on beach, water, sand. Your velvet darkness, black as blue, regal shadow against the stars and moon. Your eyes so bright and teeth so white and strength as firm as oak. Your love is naive, sweet as palm trees. My fancy you tease and poke. Oh, love me, man, and hold me near so I can feel your skin, which glistens with warm ocean juices. I just might let you in. This night is so right, me with you, Geechee night, serenaded by the waves dancing. Let's stop the time and abide in the light of our island's exotic prancing.
Beautiful, 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 very romantic, very spicy. And I love that it came as a retort to something that you recognized, because it was extremely negative. And I was curious, now that people are like you are speaking out about the richness of your culture, the beauty of the art, I mean, I've been to the Low Country and I've been to Savannah, and the food. I
know, really. Oh my goodness.
The food is so good. This culture has lasted and endured because it was in an area with property and land that nobody was interested in, right? So the culture was able to survive and thrive for so many years and even centuries. And now that waterfront property is, the thing, your whole culture and your heritage is now expendable for what's going on. So that's another reason why I wanted to talk to you and share what it means for you and your culture and your heritage. I believe when people understand the humanity behind things, that's when people kind of step in and say, oh, wow, you know what? That's not right. But if you don't understand the humanity behind it, you're kind of like, oh, well, that was yesterday. We don't need it anymore. You and I have kind of been communicating off and on for over almost 2 years now, but I guess the timing is finally right to share. I just feel like it's important for people to see the richness of what you grew up with. Would you mind sharing a little bit about the festival?
I tell you what, I wrote a poem about the festival.
Yes, go right ahead.
Capturing it, so everything is pretty much in that. But it's called the Festival de Gullah. Okay, so I hear rhythms in the wind, blowing through my skin, sending chills and thrills, carrying me within to universal beginnings, which soulfully danced its manifesting self into existence. Through the sun-kissed, burnt-skinned humans, children of the gods, yes, they were here at the very beginning. God-fashioned hair for royal crowns, which we wore and wear so beautifully at the Gullah Festival. I see smiles so warm here, glowing and sparkling as the sun, as it dances on ocean's waves and ripples, warm rays, blossoming chrysanthemums, and picturesque African greenery. I see home again at the Gullah Festival. What's that sound? Where's it coming from? Do I hear ritualistic drum calls on the fanfares from the motherland? Yes, I hear the drum calls echoing over the waterfront waves at the Gullah Festival. I smell seasonings hot and spicy, sweet and tempting, cooking through soulful delicacies made for my taste buds, leaving me no resistance and tearing down all barriers that once stopped me from indulging, that once stopped me from being myself. I am free. I can be my soulful and expressive me at the Gullah Festival. Come join the love, the fun, and the celebration of ourselves. We Gullah and we proud. Bright colors slapping in the wind. Garments and jewelry and crafts to begin. Music with jazz and drums to tremor your soul. Storytellers, dancers, the African legacy made whole. Come home and rest. Lay your burdens aside. You'll see why the universe smiles on the Gullah Festival.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. It's very easy to visualize. You do an excellent job of capturing with words. You create a beautiful picture with your words. That's excellent.
Thank you.
People of color. And one of the things that frightens me, in all honesty, is the way society now has kind of neutralized things to this all white. The fact that if we don't find a way to keep our traditions and our art front and center, I believe a generation is going to lose that talent. And by the time they recognize the beauty of what they're leaving behind, they might not have the skills to regain it. So for me, it's very important for the next generation to see the Gullah culture, the Caribbean culture, the African culture to see all that we bring to the table, all of our creativity, all of our art, all of us, the wholeness of who we are. So people like you that are authentically who you are and sharing proudly, it makes my soul very happy.
Yes.
What is it that you feel that you would like the audience to take away from meeting you today and hearing about your poetry and your stories and your culture? What would be something that you would like them to take away from this conversation?
Well, I'd like for them to know that there are so many, as you say, there are cultures that we're just learning about. We're just hearing because everything has been so whitewashed, And so where the truth is finally starting to come out. Like I said, I went in 2013, 14, I went and spent time with my Yamesse Native American tribal family in Fairfax. And so, and of course that, when all of the continents were all together, one land mass, of course it was all indigenous people, of color. When the when the continents separated, then there were people of color here in the United States, and they all were black with kinky hair. Okay, and this was all over the world, and so those people, the indigenous people, one of the tribes that were established here in the United States was the Yamesse tribe. And that is the tribe that I and my family are members of as well. My great grandfather was a Yamesse Indian, and he married my great grandmother, who was a Gullah woman. So, and so the Yamase were here in the United States before the transatlantic slave trade. So, yes, so they actually used to hide many of the slaves that were coming off the ports in Port Royal, in Charleston, and so on and so forth, like that. Until they said, "Well, hey, we know that you're an Indian, but you all look too much alike. So now we have to enslave you as well." So but that's so much history, and I'd like for people to know just to be open to the culture, the richness that we bring to the world, that the Gullah brings to the world, that the Yamase brings to the world. And also with me, one thing I tell a lot of my friends now, it's never too late to do your purpose in life. Our purposes change at different times in life. So, if you haven't figured it out at 30 or 40, God will have a surprise for you at 50. And it's like, oh, so this, exactly. So, so it's, and in my books, the Thin Veil, the Thin Veil. And this is a poetry and encounters with the unseen in the Gullah Islands. Okay. And then Reaping the Sheaves is a book. And that it was my next book. It's called Poetry and Spiritual Techniques of Manifestation. And so I have a lot of wonderful stories about how prayer and faith, manifestation, and nature work together to bring the things that God wants to happen in your life. And then, of course, my book, The Gathered Petals, and the the poetic life of a Gullah Yamase woman. About my poetry, it's spans my entire life. You see the growth of my imagination, and from throughout my lifetime, going from nature to romance to the beauty of Black people, uh, you know, uh, um, appreciating our beauty as women and men. Gullah Geechee Geechee lover, for example. There are poems in there of when I was going through a divorce. But the way I would write it wasn't always me, but I wanted to be able to connect with others who are experiencing pain or feeling as if they've lost something. I write about when I lost my brother Al, my grandmother when she passed. So my poetry spans, romance, grief, nature, relationship with God, Black pride. There's a poem in there, a prayer, a Yamesse prayer. There's a poem in there that I wrote in Gullah. So it spans a lot of different areas. So they would definitely have an experience of seeing a variety of areas that I was blessed to experience in my life that I tried that I did my best to capture in words. And then as far as culture. We are a very rich people. It's the Gullah culture is so beautiful, and we have the Gullah Festival. You can actually come experience the Gullah culture every year, Memorial Day weekend in Beauford, South Carolina. It's on the waterfront. It's free, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so my brother Thomas Roy Hicks is now the president and CEO of the festival now, and he's doing an excellent job. Which is why now we are recipients of wonderful grants, and people can come and experience it for free now for all days. And they do have to pay for the tours and I believe the play. But, and of course we have vendors, a whole bunch of food out there, and it's this wonderful entertainment, the whole thing. And then the Yamesse, we have what's called the Green Corn Festival. This year it'll be May 3rd through the 5th in Allendale, South Carolina, and on the University of Salkehatchie campus. And so you come experience that part of culture in that region. But most importantly, I just want people to know that God is real. God is real, and we experience Him through so many stories that I've written, the clients I've written for. One of the things that keeps me going and keeps me inspired is when I hear how they overcame so many tragedies in their life, and the miracles that happen are, it's just amazing. And I mean, it's like, I want people to walk away with, yes, wow, hey, I might not have experienced God like that, but this is real. And they're not making this up. They're really sharing their true life stories. I'm sharing my life stories. And what's most important is to know that whether you're working with through manifestation, visualization, whether you're witnessing, eternal spirit on the outside of you, that life goes on. Life continues. God is real, and we operate and we walk in that eternal spirit.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, your knowledge and wisdom and insight. Thank you for the lesson on the Gullah culture and the Yamesse. I love having this opportunity to share, because this is very important stuff. It's very, very important. We must know our culture. We must know our history. And I give thanks for people like you that have taken up the mantle and have the courage, strength, and tenacity to put it out there. So thank you for your time and your talents.
And let me say this, that, there are a lot of different tribe saying Yamesse, but the Chief Sekou is the chief of our tribe, and they are the.
I watched the documentary, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's our chief, and our grand matriarch is Brenda Red Crow. So,
thank you. Thank you for watching Read This. I would like to say a very special thank you to my guest, author Dr. Pazanta Byars. Please check out her website and her books and support her efforts to keep the Gullah and the Yamesse cultures alive and thriving and pass this rich tradition down to many generations to come. Thank you. This has been Read This. I am your host, Alice Maria James. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.